Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for our second weekly show of the year, brought to you by Join Cycling. Actually, I love doing the weekly shows, Benji. They were an initiative of last year when with Join bringing them to life, and now I feel like we have to have them to do news roundups, particularly at this time of the year with so many races about to begin. Actually, this is the moment, Benji. Like, this is the last day. No UCI races. And then from here on out, it's all out for the next 6 months.
Mate, it's already been all out for the last week and a half already. Like, after STDU, we had Schwalbe Classic, Surf Coast Classic. We had Cat 11's Great Ocean Road Race, men's and women's race. We had the Mallorca Challenges for the men's and the women's races. We had a Lula Tour, GP Marseillaise. There's tons of races already passed. So I feel like since like February 20th, I've already been like everyday cycling today. But then again, we're recording a podcast today, so same thing.
We also have other news like the ban, or is it actually a ban, on the carbon monoxide rebreathing that teams have been doing at altitude camps. Those rules have changed. There's the war in Eastern Congo near, obviously on the border of Rwanda, which is causing some concern for various stakeholders. And of course, the bad news about the paywall in the UK beginning now, and then in 2026 further changes to the Tour de France free to wear. So we'll get into that, as well as previews of Valenciana, Bessèges, Oman, UAE Tour women. Lots of racing starting in the desert this week, as well as the south of Spain and France. So you wrap up some of these races, Benji, a few of which were not, well, Surf Coast was not even viewable, I don't think.
Exactly. We'll fly through the early part of the races because we had some Sanderson and Under podcasts already on our podcast players. If you missed that, go and check it out. First of all, women's STDU. Noemi Rug won that very impressively on Wollonga Hill. Then on the men's race, we had Narvaez doing kind of exactly the same. Bonus seconds definitely helped for Narvaez, but seemed like he was the strongest rider in the race to me, that's for sure. Schwalbe Classic came afterwards, and that was an interesting race because I was on the roadside in Australia. Thanks to Rafa and yourself for bringing me over. And Clara Caponi won that sprint, but I was looking at Ali Wollaston, who is a new signing off FDJ Suez, rode for AG Insurance in the past. She's a proper sprinter, and I was curious what she was going to do in 2025. And she actually crashed very early on in the race, then had a mechanical later and spent half that race chasing and burned her entire team trying to get her back. She eventually got back after like lots of chasing, and she still got 7th in that race. And I was like, okay, she seems to be in form because, well, the week after, Cadell's Great Ocean Road Race, she won that. Surf Coast Classic, she won that. So I'm very intrigued to see whether she pops into my sprinter ranking on the women's side somewhere around the Consoni spot. What do you think?
She looked really fast, particularly at the end of Cadell's. She just stepped off everybody. It was no contest. And Rug's not slow either. So She's looking really, really good. Wollaston, apparently it was in the works for a long time, her moving to FDJ Suez. Nice. Yeah, big sprint prospect. And last year she had the Olympics. Now it's not the Olympic year or cycle. It's the beginning of the cycle. So yeah, she's already on Specialized at AG Insurance. But yeah, she's...
Yes.
I think there's going to be more changes in the sprints this year, so I'm keen to see how she develops.
Now, when it comes to the men's Surf Coast Classic, we had Tobias Lund Andresen, who is the guy that got impacted by Piffy in a Sanderson and under sprint, and now had his revenge beating Welsford in that race. Surf Coast Classic, not a big race, but hey, it's interesting to see in my personal opinion.
Does this prove he would have won stage 2 of the Tour Down Under?
In my opinion, he would have won that stage.
Kind of
regardless of whether he wins that Surf Coast Classic. But then again, we had the men's race of Cadell's, and Red Bull Bora does play a role there. Mauro Schmid ends up getting away after the Chalambra Crescent. Is that how you pronounce it? Last climb?
Crescent, yeah.
Crescent, okay. So after last climb, group of roughly 9-10 riders or something is together, and Schmid rides away, and then Wood starts pacing in that group because Corbin Strong's in the group. When it comes to Red Bull Bora, Finn Fisher Black and Biffy are there, and I look at Red Bull Bora as the reason that Schmid never got caught. Because Fisher Black, in my opinion, should have gone to the front, rolled with Woods, or at least afterwards, to try and get Schmid back as fast as possible, because Biffy's one of the faster guys in this group. And I feel like Fisher Black didn't do that work necessarily in that group to to bring it back. And in the end, Schmidt ends up winning. What is your thoughts?
Yeah, the Fisher Black was way too passive because everyone's looking at Pithy for a reason. He's in good shape. He's fast. He actually made it over like fifth wheel. He was nowhere even close to being dropped. He's in good climbing shape on the shorter climbs. And he won the race last year. Corbin Strong's reasonably quick, but Pithy is quicker than Strong. Strong is about 8 kilos, 10 kilos lighter than him. He just doesn't have the same punch. And then if you got Fisher Black in the group, like I felt bad for Israel because they're pacing with Woods. Woods is not the quickest guy on the flat, I would say. He's not going to win a drag race on the flat against Mauro Schmidt. There's just no way. And Fisher Black was just sitting at the back of the group the whole time. I was like, I mean, you got two options if you bore it. You use Fisher Black to jump with the Mauro Schmidt style moves. That can work. That's actually a good way to do it. Or he has to help Woods. And in the end, he comes to the front really late, then pulls, and there's a split. I don't know how the split happened in the right-hand roundabout. Pithy's on the wrong side of the split. Everyone looks at Pithy and says, it's your teammate pulling ahead.
Yeah.
And so Pithy then had to close it. So, a bit of from Chalumbra onwards, I think Bora won't be too happy with how the race panned out. But good for Jaco Alula. They got nothing out of TDU, and they win Cadell's for the first time ever, and Schmidt delivers a World Tour one-day race victory.
Honestly, when it comes to the rest of the races, well, first of all, I do want to point out Aaron Gate getting second in Cadell's. Okay. Very valuable points, 250 UCI points for Astana. And that's going to continue that story in the races I'm about to tell you about, because the Spanish races in January, starting off with GP Castellón, we start seeing a few trends. We start seeing UAE prospects doing really well. Morgado wins that race in a bit of a versatile uphill sprint, very powerful in my opinion. Then Valenciana is not long after that, where Mark Hirschi then pops up and wins the race. So
UAE
tutor
prospect.
Mark Hirschi wins his first race for the team. So that's also a good thing to see. Then we get to the Mallorca challenges, which is a combination of, I think, 4 races in Mallorca, starting off with Trofeo Calvia. Story continues. Jan Christen wins Trofeo Calvia, so another UAE youngster winning a race there after a very strong team play, in my opinion, from Morgado and Kristen bridging up to a group and then attacking that group was a really, really strong race by Kristen, and I can't wait to see what that guy cooks up for the rest of the year. Marijn van den Berg wins a bit of a sprint in Trofeo Cesalines. That is for EF still. And then we have Florian Stork, who, I don't know, I watched the final of Trofeo Serra Tramuntana, and honestly, I didn't expect Florian Stork to be this good. He gets away from a group where UAE has one rider left, and then they're like, okay, can we get that back? And everybody's kind of looking at each other a little bit. It's like Group 2 syndrome kind of vibe, but he was also strong enough to then survive on the last hill to the finish line. And if you didn't know, Florian Stork is a dude that rode for DSM in the past, maybe Sunweb days even.
Yeah, he was good on her feet once, right?
Yeah.
Like 7th on her feet in his Neo Pro year and then never did anything.
Top 10 or something on her feet. Vividly remember something like that. And now he's on Tudor Pro Cycling. I'll be honest, over the last 1.5 years, I was like, okay, I haven't seen much from Florian Stork, but I recall there being some injury or illness reasons to that, but I'm not 100% sure. Stork ends up winning a Mallorca challenge here. Andrade, the last of the 4, gets cancelled.
But this race, I want to point out, this race is all about he or she. And what you mentioned about UAE, you have one in the group.
Yeah.
So UAE, Morgado's quick, but like Kristen's not winning a group sprint, even at 5 or 6 probably. He or she is, in these smaller races, he is so good. If you watch when Stork attacks, firstly, Stork was very smart. He saw that Morgado left a gap. Morgado didn't want to pull. He left a gap. Stork sees, attacks, bang, and it's like Malucelli, who's like my size on Bardiani, trying to chase him on the flat. He or she's on the radio within 5 seconds. Go, 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 go. He or she then is so aggressive on the wheel of anyone in the next 2 minutes. Like, I think, Malucelli or a Bardiani guy tries to jump, he's on his wheel. Ulisi on Astana, might have been in the group, or Scaroni, whatever, an Astana Italian, goes to jump. He or she's literally jumping to him, like, as he's moving, be like, you're not going anywhere, and then everyone stops. And so, this is what we saw with the combination of Hirschi and Ulisi at UAE. Hirschi is almost impossible to drop on any hill, unless it's like Pog or someone or like that level, he's almost always the quickest in a small group sprint, or at least he's going to podium. And so when you pair him then with an attacker or with teammates, he's deadly. And even he outplayed Scaroni solo in one of the other races he won. So here's for Tudor. When he's paired with Alaphilippe in good shape,
Yeah.
like those four, I can't wait to watch them at the opening French weekend. They will be nasty, maybe especially in the easier one on Sunday.
For the people that don't know, the opening French weekend is Drôme Classique and so forth, right?
Yeah, Fornardèche and Drôme Classique. So the Saturday one's harder, a longer climb, and the second one is a bit easier. I think Bini came third in it on Delco like 5 years ago, and I was like, why has no one signed him?
Very quick correction. I think it was Marcellucci instead of Malucelli, but
Malucelli is the Tokyo sprinter, right?
Yes, he's a sprinter that in the OE Tour for Gazprom 3 years ago was the guy that always stayed in the wheel of everyone and got fourth in every sprint.
He's on Astana now.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Leitao wins Palma, Trofeo Palma, the last one, with a late attack, which is something that you don't often see anymore. Like Jure Leitao is a track merchant who now rides for Caja Rural, has been riding for that team quite a bit, a Portuguese guy. And he basically tagged with a couple of kilometers to go, late attack, maybe 1-2 kilometers to go.
You could see he planned it. He is a last corner attack gimmick merchant, and it was so effective. He gets like into the track position after it was really smart.
Hot take, I want to see this guy in a lead-out role. I kind of believe that Jure Leitao could be a bit of an Oliveira type in that sense.
Yep.
So
Oliveira's his
like
teammate on the track.
Exactly. That is true. Anyway, he wins the last of these 5 Mallorca challenges. There was a bit of drama though, because the fourth one, Trofeo Andrach, got cancelled because of weather conditions in the first 20-25 kilometers. And then the organizer later gave like one of those like Venny speeches of like, the riders didn't consult us, that kind of vibe. Hey, well, if the weather is too bad, then the riders are going to decide not to ride. And I'll be honest, I'm on the rider's side automatically in that scenario.
I think I saw from Adam Hansen's tweet this morning, there was like 13 crashes in 25 Ks. Like the roads, especially if you don't know, like in Mallorca, if there's a bit of rain after it hasn't rained, the roads are extremely slippery. So, it's also not a stage race for a reason. This is supposed to be a tune-up race in January. It's not supposed to be the Liège-Bastogne-Liège. So, yeah, I support the riders in this instance. Okay, but before we get to the desert where Tom Pidcock was on fire, I finished my my FTP builder plan, Benji.
Ooh.
I'm at 111% progress on Join, and it's time for something different. As you can tell, I'm back in Andorra in my normal setup, and so it's time for me, now that I spent the 3 months training in Australia, to have a different goal. So
wait, is it time for the Patrick Broe sprint plan?
There is no Patrick Broe sprint plan.
Not yet.
There's the Lanterne Rouge plan. So which I might do. I'm thinking about it. So put in the comments down below which Join Cycling plan should I do. Now, do not tell me to do the beach race plan. I'm not doing the beach race. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing a multi-day mountain bike plan. I've already done the Fabio Jakobsen sprint plan, but yeah, I'm thinking of what plan should I do? I'm leaning towards, improve long climbs is not so different to FTP builder, I would say. That might be the one that's more suited to where I am in Andorra. So let me know in the comments down below. But yeah, my level has improved so much, and I need to get it. I'm at level like 27, 28 now. And with a bit of diet now, which is easier now that I'm not near the cafes on the Gold Coast, I think I'll be able to get my level in the next 3 months up to 35, 37, and then we'll really be moving, Benji. Luke's back apparently. Flying.
Corkscrew next year.
Corkscrew next year, which obviously obliterated it this year. Corkscrew next year has to be, what did I do? 10:56?
Yeah.
Corkscrew next year's got to be 9 minutes.
9 minutes.
9 minutes, yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's easy, but yeah. Also, everyone, comment if you're feel like it, to tell Luke what plan he has to do. Luke is what sort of rider were you? You're like a Gijs Lijmreiser type operator, or more of a
Luke is a Pidcock narwhal.
WorldTour riders Luke. I think he's Dutch, he's tall, which sort of goes without saying. It's like saying ATM machine. I think he's actually maybe like Jan Willem van Schip.
Ronde van Drenthe merchant.
He says bit punchy.
Telling you, Ronde van Drenthe merchant.
Exactly.
Van Berg, every day of the week.
Alrighty. Onto the desert, Benji. What happened in Alula Tour?
So Alula Tour, 5-day stage race in Saudi Arabia, and there's a lot of desert there. And if desert exists, then Merlier is good when it comes to sprints. Obviously, his competition in this race when it comes to the sprints is not the Jonathan Millans of the world, but he still shreds everyone in the first and second sprint stage, which I think is stage 1 and stage 3 of this race. And for GC, we're looking at one man in this race. We're looking at one man and some outsiders. And looking at this race, you've got those like 2-3 kilometer, maybe 4 kilometer, very steep segments of 10-12%, especially on stage 4, which, if you don't know stage 4 of Alula Tour, is like flat for 90% of the stage, like a 3-4 kilometer, very steep climb, and then it's flat until the finish line. And I'm talking steep, it's like steep is 10+% in a lot of areas. And I'm looking at Tom Pidcock at Q36.5. We mentioned at the start of the year, in my opinion, that, well, I think in our opinion, it was that Pidcock is a move forward for this team, one of the first moves they had forward in the past, because they were a bit stagnating before this transfer. And it delivers from the get-go. The second stage, he steps off everyone with a, as you stated it, my friend, a thermonuclear attack in your summary video on the Lanterne Rouge YouTube channel, and was super impressive. But I was just as impressed by what was happening behind, because, yeah, Dunbar's a leader for Jaco, looked pretty okay, but Alan Hafferley, the guy that was mountain
really
bike world champion, or was it Olympic? Pidcock got Olympic, if I recall correctly. Yeah. He's a South African, he's a mountain biker, starts his road career at Jaco this year. We didn't know whether that would be, is he going to have positioning issues? Is he going to have issues with translating himself towards a road cyclist? I still think his positioning had a few things. I think before the climb on stage 2, he was positioned in Narnia, but moved himself up on the climb itself. He ends up getting a podium place on GC for the first 4 stages. We'll talk about the rest later. And looks very impressive on every single one of the climbs. But Pidcock delivers on stage 2 and on stage 4, which stage 4 was even more impressive, right? It was like the continuous upping of the pace on the climb itself, gradually dropping everyone.
Yeah. Pidcock had no climbing support, but he had actually really good support on the stages where you needed help, because, yeah, it was all the climbs were so steep that draft didn't really matter, and he just dusted everybody. But in the crosswind stages, Frederic Frison, who they'd already signed a year ago, and he after a great lotto year, Frison, Zukovsky, Lapinge, these rouleurs who they're not good enough really to win themselves in classics, but actually very experienced in crosswinds and very dedicated, and they were outstanding. Then in the last stage, there's more crosswinds. Hadley and Dunbar get gapped. Jaco keep rouleurs ahead. The gap was like 7 seconds.
Too.
Pardon?
Keplinger also gets dropped in that echelon.
Keplinger dropped.
Second and third in GC.
And UnoX is smashing it, and it pays off. Moschetti wins the stage. So 4 wins in Alula by the start of February. 4 wins for Q36.5 Pro Cycling. Last year they won 5 races total. 2 of them were national champs. So they won 3 races as a team last year, and they've already won 4. So good start. They'll be happy with that.
One final thing on that last stage, the sprint was roughly, if I recall, like 80 kilometers per hour.
It was really fast,
We have UCI rules and we've got parkour guidelines. It's 2 separate things. UCI rules are the rules that are applied during the race. Parkour guidelines are a set of guidelines that race organizers get to design stage and so forth. And La Parisienne has come out, I think 2-3 years ago at a Tour of Turkey stage after a sketchy finish and said, we should have straight finishes and we shouldn't have like bends finishes, whatever. He also said in the same statement that we shouldn't have descents before sprints that lead to a certain amount of speed, and that points towards the parkour guidelines that do exist. In my opinion, those parkour guidelines should become parkour rules, because we see them being skipped too often, And what is the point of having guidelines if you don't enforce them? Because here there was a descent just before the sprint, leads to a very high speed, and I'm sorry, but that shouldn't be happening. Sprinting at 80k per hour is insane to me. 85, I think it was at a certain point.
Yeah, they're going pretty fast. I think Volta did his fastest. Yeah, he showed a 300 meter, 30-second segment. But yeah, Groenewegen, for Jaco, he just, like, Groenewegen to me, finds ways to lose. Even when he's in position, he finds ways to lose. And that's where the lack of, like, total wins throughout the year happens. Like, is Moschetti a better sprinter than him? Probably no, not really. But he just finds ways to get boxed.
Because, like, in the last stage, he looked like the fastest sprinter, but he gets boxed and
because
eventually
Merlier was
can't
gone.
come out.
It was the chance to win because Merlier was gone.
So I agree.
But yeah, good start for Q3-6. In GP Marseillaise, I would say the best race to watch so far this year. The last 40Ks, or the last 32Ks, I would recommend everyone turns on. Ineos had their new French signing, Axel Laurence, Paul Seychas for the decathlon, who's come straight out of juniors. Kevin Vauquelin attacking. It was a really, really great race on the Route de Crête. They did like big watts.
Disrespect? Shall we not talk about the Belgian man in the group?
Timo
Kielich from Alpecin de Koning?
He's a strange rider.
I wouldn't have expected him to be in that group.
He's a strange rider. The Venn diagram of his skills, Kielich, is very unusual. He's not that heavy. He's not like big like Rickard. He's like 73 kilos. He's won GP Denain. He's lethal in Roubaix. He can climb on Route de Crête, where I think Vauquelin did 1,000,000 watts on a 10-minute, 7.5% climb. He follows, just about. But he can't do the Belgian classics at all.
Yet.
No, I don't think he has. I don't think he's explosive enough.
Is it explosivity or is it?
I think it's explosivity.
Positioning issues.
He won GP Denain.
Yeah, fair.
And in Roubaix, he was lethal. I think. It's actually strange rider. Interesting, but strange rider. Also, Josh Tarling, what a beast! What a beast following those units over the top. And what did you think of this final, Benji? Laurence looked good. Like Ineos, actually, this was quite positive.
Yeah, I think it was a fantastic race. Let me get that out of the way first. And we get that scenario, the 5-man group, Tarling, Laurence, Vauquelin, Kielich, Seychas. On the final climb, Tarling gets dropped. So it reduces to a group of 4, and there's no teams with 2 riders anymore. And that's where the games begin, you know? There's still a gap of like 30 seconds at this point, and we start seeing attacks by Vauquelin, left and right. That guy, I swear he attacked 1 billion times. I saw him off the front more than I saw him in the group at a certain point. But eventually, it does come back together, and there were a few moments, though, where I was like, okay, this rider should have maybe made a decision differently. And one of those moments is, for example, where Vauquelin once again attacks, Laurence bridges towards Vauquelin, and Kielich and Seychelles are kind of left behind for a second. And
9.8 Ks to go.
Laurence is not riding with Vauquelin. What should he have done else?
When there's a group of 4 that's in like non-cooperative mode, and it's in that mode because Vauquelin he does not want to go to the sprint. He can't sprint, even though it's slightly uphill. And so you got to be thinking, if Laurence is like, he closes Vauquelin down, bang, into the wheel, into a descent. Vauquelin keeps pulling for a bit. The other 2 look cooked. If you're going to close the move down, you got to think of like the second order consequences. It's like, okay, if I don't pull, is Vauquelin going to pull me to the line for 10 kilometers in his wheel? No, he's not going to do that. So the other group will come back. And so then attacks will happen again. And then I might miss it. Then we might stop. Then we might get caught. So when you're the fastest sprinter in a group of 2, and Vauquelin would have done 70% of the work as well. Like, you just have to roll through. Like, that's the situation you want. And if you're too cooked, then don't close down the attack in the first place. But he was banging into the wheel. So I think he's young, he's 23 or something with Laurence, but he should have pulled with Vauquelin. And then I think they might have stayed away. Seychelles and Kielich were a little bit gassed at that moment. But the 4 come together, they can't work at all. And they get caught in the last 800 meters, 700 meters by the Cofidis, the rampaging Cofidis.
we can't neglect the fact that they still had a proper gap with 2K to go.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
really
they stalled.
1.5K to go to 8
You couldn't see
kilometers
the
to go.
peloton.
They started surplusing. Like, I'm sorry, but it's obvious
Uphill
that people
too.
are going to come back. What, sorry?
It was sort of false slide uphill surpassing, so they're really going slow.
Yeah. And then we see a shot from the front and we see the peloton just behind, and I'm like, okay, they're fucked. They're doomed at this point. And maybe I was still expecting like a last move from someone, because the peloton's nearby. If you're not going to attack now, you're not going to win anyway. But maybe Laurence was thinking, if I get caught by the group, getting in a good position, then maybe I can still have a solid sprint here, that kind of vibe. But like you say, it's a very odd sprint though. I gotta tell you that, because I feel like the sprint starts, but the sprint is launching instead of a proper lead out. Because I swear the sprint starts with 450 meters to go. Ferron on the right side of the road, Van Hemelen on the left side of the road, a super long sprint. And we see them sprinting side by side, and it looks like Van Hemelen is going to win. He goes past Ferron, he goes to the finish line, and then he does what I would call a reverse bike throw.
Worst one I've ever seen.
Instead of throwing your bike forward, you pull it backwards.
Dude,
I'm not sure that's actually what happened, but it was like
guy.
It was a really poor bike throw, which is probably because he just did a 400-meter sprint, so I can't even blame him for it. He was probably just done for, but it costs him the victory, because on the right side of the road, Valentin Ferron takes another victory for Cofidis. That is, they already won with Kokar in Tour Down Under, so that's their second victory of the season. And like, when Ferron's transfer to Cofidis was announced over the off-season, I thought, okay, this is maybe an attempt to create some kind of 2024 Alexandre de Lettre, because was a guy that gets top 10 UCI points in every single one of those 1.1 classics, scores here or there in those races, and maybe try and find someone like that in Valentin Ferron. But he wins straight off the get-go, so he's already surpassed 2024 de Lettre, in my personal opinion.
Yep, he won a Dauphiné stage a few years ago.
True.
In a breakaway.
Holy shit.
As well, the French breakaway when they ganged up on Baggioli in 2022. He's a decent like hilly rider, and he got a bit not lucky. I mean, well, yeah, a little bit lucky, and also Seixas. I mean, he still came fifth in this despite being the breakaway. His sprint is nasty, so yeah, I think Seixas. I wonder what he would have done just from the group. But really, really exciting race.
For people that don't know, people might already know quite a bit of him, but who is Paul Seixas? Because we yap about him all the time, but he's a super talent, right?
Yeah, forget Lenny Martinez, forget all the... this is the new French GC Hope. But this one's actually like... He has all the... He looks like he has the complete package, because he can ride on the flat, he could ride overall one-day races, he was so good in juniors. As a first-year junior, he was ridiculously good. Last year, he was a second-year junior. Basically, he won pretty much. Like in Tour de Pays de Vaud, which is a Swiss race, they did a climbing test, a Whopper Kilo test on stage 3 up Villars-sur-Olon, and he put everyone, which is about a 25-minute climb, 27 minutes. He put everyone on Pericas on a minute 30.
Everybody who watched Tour de Suisse last year knows that climb from start to finish.
The climb got done a million times in various races last year. It's ridiculous. He beat Lorenzo Fin in Lunigiana, which has been won by Remco. He won World Championships Junior, the TT in Zurich, which was flat. He beat the big guys like Philipsen, so he can TT, which is always the knock on someone like Lenny. He's just so small. He's explosive. His sprint is good. His descending looked good in Marseillaise. So let's put all the pressure on him. People texting me saying this is a new Poggy, but he does look really good.
Yeah, looks extremely talented. But like every single talent that comes to the market, it's a weird thing to say. Like, we have to wait a little bit. He's showing extreme promise by delivering on his first race, getting a top 5 after a strong final at GP Marseillaise. I want to see that consistently throughout the year, but I'm also not going to be like, okay, I need to see that in 2025 for him to be successful. Like, he's still only 18, so he's got some time to cook something up. But that's it when it comes to the races. But like, can we talk about Astana a little bit more? Because I hinted at it a little bit, but they scored consistently, right? Is this like, Are we talking World Tour license saving UCI points or not enough?
I don't think so. I think this is like when Intermarché did this 2 years ago or 3 years ago. They come out and they hit these early races really, really hard. And then they're not going to be able to maintain that momentum when other teams begin to actually peak for races that are more important. That being said, Scaroni looks really... I mean, Scaroni was already good, but instead of going in Paris-Nice breakaways to get the KOM jersey, Christian Scaroni is going to score in UCI, like one-day races, which is what he's good at. Like, he's already fourth in La Guelia. So, a Gate was a great signing. He's going to now go to New Zealand National Champs and Oceania Continental Champs, and with the shape he's in, he can win them, and so he might add another 300 UCI points before he even returns to Europe and be on 500. Bettiol's done nothing, which is where they probably spent the most money. But to answer your question, I think they're going to get the 1 year wild card, but no, I don't. Saving their license would be very, very difficult.
Yeah, I think so too. The gap is just gigantic towards the top 18 to overcome that. And like you say, this is not the period of the season where anyone is speaking for yet. Astana seems to be at a high form though. Then again, like, I remember a vivid conversation from this podcast 4 years ago where you said that peaking in cycling didn't exist. I think you had a whole conspiracy that week. Do you still stand by that statement or not?
I stand by it. It doesn't really exist.
Fuck.
No, it does. Like, obviously with altitude camps, etc. Like, I think probably Pogacar can do better 20-minute swaps per kilo in July than in UAE Tour, but who knows?
I don't know. Scaroni for the Tour? I think it's a valuable bet right there.
It's also a mindset thing, it's just a mindset thing. Like, they go to these races, they really... And Mallorca, they're going really to get points. I think some other teams are going to just get some racing in the legs. They also... What was I going to say? The way they're racing is something to bear in mind. Like Astana, so a Gate, for example, he could have tried to follow Schmidt. He could have tried to jump across to him. He went fully for second or to sprint, which is fine. Also, in the other races, Astana are really... then they're riding for points, not for the win, which is fair enough. They're trying to stack 3 in the top 10. They're not really going to win.
Yeah, I think that's a valid comment. And to be honest, that brings me to another point. I think talking about Pidcock for a second, like, we saw this at the Alula Tour now. Does this make me think that he's going to win World Tour one-day classics? I'm not necessarily on that page, because while he did have support in the echelon segments in the Alula Tour, having so in the classics when it matters is very valuable and very important, while other teams are going to be there with, well, first of all, a Mathieu van der Poel who's going to beat them 1-1. Mathieu van der Poel is a better rider than Pidcock, I'm sorry, in the classics. And then the other teams will be there with numerical advantage compared to Pidcock. So I don't see any difference in my expectations for Pidcock in the classics just because he won Alula Tour, which is a race that with that start list he should have won. But I'm still happy that he did it,
Well, yeah, you still have to go out and do it, and there's a lot of tricky stages. Even the last day, huge echelons is a tricky race, actually. You make one mistake, you're on the wrong side of an echelon. But yeah, that's all the racing. We'll do the preview shortly. We'll do now a miscellaneous news roundup. So the UCI, the title of this is... Well, the title is not misleading, but the how people are reacting to it, I think, is a misunderstanding. The UCI, I'll read the press release, bans repeated inhalation, repeated is the key word there, of carbon monoxide, and introduces measures to ensure participation of best teams in top-tier road events. Don't care about the second thing. That's just about... You can only skip one World Tour race next year. So if it's Cadell's, then you can't skip Frankfurt.
Very quickly, 26. I do want to mention for men's cycling, I don't think that has a major impact. There are teams, for example, I think their World Tour teams are getting starting fees from specific World Tour races to be at the start, like a UAE Tour, etc. So that's going to fall away, most likely, on the men's side. Teams are going to get less money, which in the world of cycling is something that teams won't like,
I
especially
think you
because
have
they
to
don't
do
get
UAE.
much.
No?
No, because it came after 2017. All the
really?
WorldTour races that arrived after 2017 were ones that were optional. And that is the thing that's changing. From today, well, from 2026 onwards, you can skip one WorldTour race, but you have to do the rest. But I think the biggest issue for me is women's cycling, because I'm not sure a team like Ceras Tizit can literally do all but one WorldTour race. That's a lot.
Tough. Especially
So-
because they have the ones in China at the end of the year,
Yeah.
which really get poor participation. It's not like, I know Sarah do that one, but yeah, that's going to be tricky. But on to the bigger topic. So the management committee of the UCI has met and they've approved a ban on the repeated inhalation of carbon monoxide. It comes into force in 6 days on the 10th of February. And I'm still quoting, as a reminder, carbon CO is commonly used in sports medicine to measure total hemoglobin mass and blood volume, especially to examine the effects of endurance training and altitude exposure on oxygen carrying capacity. So the UCI has basically said it's commonly used. That's a legitimate use of this, of carbon monoxide to see basically how the altitude camp has worked. However, its repeated inhalation can result in acute and chronic health problems for various symptoms. The new regulation forbids the possession outside of a medical facility of commercially available CO rebreathing systems connected to oxygen. This ban applies to all license holders, teams, and or bodies subject to UCI regs, and to anyone else who might possess such equipment on behalf of riders or teams, which would be consultants who do the rebreathing test. So possession's banned outside of a medical facility, but the inhalation of CO will remain authorized within a medical facility. Don't know what a medical facility definition is yet. And under the responsibility of a medical professional experienced in the manipulation of this gas for medical reasons. Don't know what medical reasons means. And in line with the following restrictions, only one inhalation to measure total HB mass will be permitted. A second is allowed or authorized 2 weeks after the initial HB measurement. So me reading that, before altitude, you can still go to a medical facility, do the first HB measurement, then after the altitude camp, which is usually about 12 days, 14 days, you can then go and get the second measurement done.
Yeah, correct.
Right?
Yes. So basically, in dumb words, because that's a lot of very intelligent words that I read half the document and I fall asleep because I don't understand it. So very shortly, at the start of an altitude training camp, they use these carbon monoxide machines to get a beginner reading, a benchmark of their blood situation of a rider, to then after the altitude training do that again to see how much a rider's blood situation has improved from that altitude training. That's how you perceive that, how I read that. And that is done now by having one inhalation at the start of the training camp and one at the end. The thing that the UCI wants to prevent is the repeated inhalation. So if you're just sucking on that machine for an entire day, probably not healthy for you, but it's allegedly improving yourself as a rider. I'm not smart enough to figure out.
Well, actually, no one knows that. Firstly, no one knows that anyone's done that. Secondly,
Yes.
There's no conclusive evidence that it would improve you, because actually it's like if you were smoking cigarettes during an altitude camp, putting the carbon monoxide in your blood. You also have to train on an altitude camp. So if you're huffing carbon monoxide all day, every day, probably going to be pretty difficult to do your VO2 max intervals that day.
I do think it's a good thing that the UCI is banning the repeated inhalation.
Sure.
But I haven't seen the specific rule. So
yeah, the regulations we can't read yet. So there's a lot of wiggle room and grey area here, Benji. What's a medical facility? What's medical reasons?
But they're saying that regardless of the medical facility and medical reasons, that what they're conceptualizing here is you can do it at the start and at the end with those medical facilities, whatever. So regardless of anything, you can't do it repeated, which is the thing that they're trying to ban, partially for cheating purposes, partially for safety purposes. So
but to me, this is already banned.
In what way?
You can't artificially manipulate your blood values. There's already a broad provision that you can't do that. using a prohibited method. Or, I mean, maybe you say it wasn't a prohibited method, but to me, this is already pretty much banned, like not permitted to do.
I don't know. I'm not the lawyer in this situation, so you might be more aware whether there's a gray zone or something to exploit in a rule like that.
But I agree. Like riders should, if it wasn't technically banned, then okay, great, should be banned. But people are taking that it's like banned. It's not. If the teams that said last year, Visma, Israel, UAE, maybe others were also doing the measurements, but the measurements that those teams said we measure at the start, we measure at the end, that's not banned, really. Yep. If they do it in accordance with the regulations. So to me, there is no ban on what was already happening. I think this has been the biggest beat up mountain out of a molehill I can remember, and it's another example of cycling castigating itself. And unfortunately, Guardian article from the Associated Press, cycling's governing body bans carbon monoxide rebreathing on health grounds. And the average person is going to think that, all the riders have been sitting in their garage, doing the acute thing, when there's actually no evidence that has happened.
In the Velo News article, I gotta say, I didn't remember Velo News existing for the last 3 years. I thought that died like 3 years ago. And I saw a Velo News article about this, and it literally said, the carbon monoxide rebreathing linked to Vingegaard and Pogacar. I'm sorry, but what?
Yeah.
That's not what... That's just factually incorrect reporting.
So all the swimmers, all the runners who are just also... Because basically this has been done for 20 years plus. These measurements for how altitude camps
work. And will continue, because that's not what's banned.
And then all the running and swimming coaches must be looking like, why the fuck is there a Guardian article, Associated Press articles? Like, mate, I mean, that's the thing. Like the Escape original article about this wanted to have a doping story, right?
Yeah.
And so they spun it as a doping story, even though there was no evidence that the acute abuse of carbon monoxide was happening. Zero evidence that was happening. And so it's like, because also they didn't really understand it, and they were like, what is this? It's like if they'd never seen a repeated lactate test, and they went in January to Col d'Arates in Alicante, and they're like, hold on, they're taking their blood every time they finish a hill rep after 8 minutes. This could be blood doping if abused.
But I'm also I'm like on the fence, because on one end, yes, they probably wanted a doping story, but on the other end, there's such limited investigative journalism in the sport of cycling right now that I feel, in my personal opinion, that I'm not going to be complaining about situations where journalists are looking into potential doping methods in cycling after the history that the sport has had in the past. Yes, it's cutting into the sport's own legs, but with the history of the sport, I think it's kind of inevitable.
But it wasn't even investigative. They spoke to the performance managers of the teams, and they were like, they had nothing to hide. They were just like, yeah, this is what we do, and we do it. And then they're like, we have a doping story. It's like, well, I don't know, the way they spun it, if you compare it to the way James Witt's in The Observer for cycling in The Guardian, his title, Road Cycling, how a legitimate blood test became Road Cycling, how a legitimate blood test became the focus of performance abuse claims. And then he went through it. Yep. And his article, I would say, is much better. But
fair point.
I agree, though, Benji. It's a bit of a mountain out of a molehill, but also you're right. It shouldn't be controversial. Well, the UCI regulations aren't controversial. Like, it should not be allowed acutely. It's dangerous and shouldn't be allowed. The acute inhalation. But I think there's been a lot of misunderstanding about this topic, unfortunately. And also that it's going to continue. We'll see the regulations. Maybe the ban is, I don't know, we haven't seen the regs yet.
But hopefully we put that right for a few people that might have been confused about the whole situation in this podcast. But it's not the only thing that's happening in cycling when it comes to miscellaneous news in the sport. And unfortunately, the next topic is quite political. There is currently an ongoing political conflict between Rwanda-backed rebels.
Testing Benji's geopolitical nous here. Yeah, no, go on.
I should be one of those like political streamers from this point onwards.
Benji's going to be a consultant to the Conflicted podcast, which I listen to, which
I don't know what that is.
It specializes in North African and Middle East conflict.
Okay, so Rwanda-backed rebels. I think they're called M. I'm doing this off the top of my head, by the way. I'm not even looking at the article, which is very dangerous behavior. That rebel group is called the M23, if I recall correctly. And they're currently, I think that there's a village that is just in DR Congo, which I think is like
Goma.
Republic of Congo, even though I want to say Dominican Republic of Congo, but it's obviously not that. It's like just in Congo, over the border from Rwanda. So it's in Congo, not in Rwanda. There's been a city or a village, whatever, that has been taken over by those rebels. Hey, so far, I think I'm doing pretty all right. And that's happening. Problem is, that's very close to where, first of all, Tour de Rwanda is being hosted. Next month, I think, start of March or end of February, something like that. And it's also close to where the Rwanda World Championships will happen at the end of the year. And first of all, Rwanda is led by a dictatorship, and the first comment that I want to talk about is a comment from Van Golen from Golazzo, who said, I don't think this is about sports washing. Our money doesn't come from a dictator, it comes from the African Cycling Federation. My personal opinion, I'm sorry, but that money in the African Cycling Federation also comes from the Rwandan dictator. So I don't think you can spin it like that, Van Golen. But outside of that, the danger for the riders itself, it's within like 15, 20 kilometers of where races will be held throughout the year. The UCI is taking a stance of, we're giving advice that it's currently not in danger and we don't need to have a plan B yet for the World Championships. And for the Tour de Rwanda, I think, to be clear, there's a guy on Twitter and Blue Sky, his name is Global Peloton, he's got a Substack, and he goes in-depthly into these geopolitical situations influencing the cycling in that region, and that article is going to be a lot better than my explanation of this. So,
Dan Charles.
Yeah, what is your opinion on what I just quacked about?
Yeah, so I know this is an apolitical podcast, but I guess we're going to have to get into it.
Yes.
Where did we go in 2022, Benji? Where you met your wife?
Where did I go in 2022? Oh, my wife. I should remember that. Budapest in Hungary.
We did.
Which also
and
has
what
issues.
Country borders Hungary?
Mate.
He doesn't even remember.
Okay.
Ukraine, dude.
I didn't even know
and the
that.
war had just started. You didn't even think about it. We went to Hungary. My mum was like, Putin is going to steal my son.
Jesus Christ.
But you say it tongue in cheek, but you know, things could have, you don't know how things can go. What happens if the war expands?
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it is Europe, but we went to Hungary. We didn't even think twice about it. Now, Hungary is not Rwanda. It's not in Africa, obviously. It's easier to get to and probably more familiar to many of the teams.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is we don't really know what's going to happen with this conflict in the Congo. It seems to be like what was happening with the war in Ukraine, confined to the Congo. It's not expanding into Rwanda. I mean, that would also make sense if indeed the rebels that have taken Goma are supported by Rwanda, and Rwanda says it's sent troops to the border to make sure there's no spillover. But the thing is, the fact that Rwanda, I mean, I actually think the story of Rwanda since the genocide has been actually incredible. If you compare it to the baseline in the African continent, how that country's developed in the last 30 years. But, you know, if you assess it by European standards, democratic standards, obviously doesn't look as good. That being said, that's irrelevant. Where are we having races at the moment, Benji? That's teams that doesn't matter. Whether it's a monarchy running a country, or autocratic regime, not relevant consideration. Okay? What the teams care about and should and do care about is, are their riders, also known as their most valuable assets, going to be safe going to this event? And if that can't be guaranteed, they will not go. And even if the federation wants them and says it's okay, they're not going to go. I mean, and also the federation has a responsibility and a duty of care to their riders. So it's it's just another thing. There was already a lot of federations that are like, oh, there's not enough hotels. It's going to be difficult. This is just another thing making it more difficult.
I agree, but it does bring the question in me forward, like, not specifically this occasion, but plenty of occasions throughout the year. Are we getting too desensitized to sports washing because it's the standard now across the sport? It's not just regions where currently violence is brewing. There's also oil-backed countries. There's also, like, Europe isn't a perfect country either in that. Europe isn't a country. Yeah, Europe isn't a perfect region either. Like, are we as cycling fans ignoring it too much is what I'm trying to bring up.
I mean, depends on your view. Depends on what people think individually. But yeah, I think that's not going to be the front of mind consideration for the federations and the teams. It's going to be safety, affordability, and what happens if the rider has a crash. Is there appropriate medical facilities? And so this is not the end of the story. The UCI has come out and said there is no exploration of a plan B. The cycling event cycling's an ambassador for peace. And I'll be like, well, cycling may be an ambassador for peace, but UAE ain't sending Tadej Pogacar to a country that if they think there's going to be issues.
Yeah.
Even if is an ambassador for peace. So but we'll see. I'm not a geopolitical expert, and if it's safe, then it'll be fine. It's a bit of a shame because, if everything has to be perfect, then we won't have races in Africa.
Yeah.
We won't have races. World championships in Africa, world championships in South America. If everything's going to has to be perfect, or at least if federations are a little bit uncomfortable. So,
also the sport of cycling wants to be a global sport.
Exactly, that's the thing. Otherwise, you're just going to rotate through France, Spain, Italy every year.
It's currently not really a global sport because there's plenty of regions that the sport does not go to, where it's not as developed, the sport, where it's not as vibrant. I don't have no clue what word I was looking for, but that's not the word I was looking for. Now, we then have a World Championships that showing up in Rwanda, wherever it is that it shows up, and we have multiple federations that choose to not afford or can't afford sending a U23 team, a junior team. I think a Scandinavian country definitely has decided, maybe it was Denmark, I don't remember fully, maybe Norway, that they won't send their youngsters or something to Rwanda for the World Championships youth races. Can we blame a federation for not doing that when, one, we want to see the sport more global, but it comes at a cost, and two, we see year on year that governments, even in the Netherlands, I feel like there's a lot of criticism towards the Dutch government that there's less and less investments in the sports side of things or something. I'm clearly not an expert on Dutch politics, but that's the vibe I get when reading Thijs Zonneveld's tweets every day. So it's shocking then that they choose to or can't afford sending a youngster team to Rwanda World Champs or something, which I'm not saying the Netherlands doesn't do that. I don't actually know.
Well, yeah, it's obviously more expensive to go there compared to going to Switzerland or to Lyon, or to get the train down to Lyon. Now, I mean, a lot of Australian juniors already have to pay themselves out of pocket to go to World Championships if you're an Australian junior, which is a lot of money too. So that's it's a lot of unfairness just generally the World Championships, which in theory should be an open event accessible to all. And yes, the UCI has denied that they're exploring a plan B. Already people are saying, well, the plan B would be basically from the UCI headquarters, which is what the 2020 World Championships was supposed to be pre-pandemic, where they start in Aigle, go out along the river. Is it a river if it comes from a lake? Don't know.
Please tell me Villars-sur-Glâne is not in the park.
No, it's not Villars-sur-Glâne. They do reps of the climb around Martigny, which would be pretty difficult. What's it called? The climb is called
the Martigny climb. Alto del Martini.
Fontaine or something. It's pretty hard. It's like 3Ks at 10.3%,
The
3.6Ks.
Fontaine climb.
It'd still be a really, really hard climb and still be a hard race, 4,000 meters climbing. So, but that's, yeah, if Rwanda's not possible, then actually that would probably be the parkour, I would guess. And the plan B. But we'll see.
I think so too.
What do you think will happen? I think Rwanda will proceed. And yeah.
I think Rwanda will proceed as well because if I recall correctly, in that reporting by Global Peloton, there was a mention that in 2012, the stage of the Tour de Rwanda literally happened when there was conflict in that same city 15 kilometers further on. So I'd be surprised if we see the races this year being impacted by that. But I have my personal views on it maybe next to that. That being said,
I think we'll see. I think it'll be like Wollongong. I think like where Foss won. I think it'll be strange races with strange results, though.
Jesus, I don't actually know who's gonna win that. I don't know. It's like we'll wait. Sorry, we won't do a World Championships preview on the 4th of February 2025 when we're literally talking about it potentially having a chance of not happening in the region that we're talking about. So no quacking about that. Let's bring it over to another issue in the world of cycling. We've got it's a process that has been ongoing for the last couple of months, if not 2 years, I would say 2 years, 3 years. Basically, Warner Bros. Discovery, Warner Bros., the company that you see at the start of lots of movies, they ended up buying Discovery, who bought Eurosport. So now it's like all under one banner, under Warner Bros. Discovery. And we saw some change in the landscape over the last 3 years, I would say. We saw in many countries, first of all, GCN Plus existed. GCN Plus died. This is part of that process.
It was
in
killed.
Many countries.
It did not die. It was killed.
I think that's a very fair assessment. In many countries, we had Eurosport Player, Discovery Plus as multiple options where you could go watch your cycling for a subscription payment. Now, the company Warner Bros. Discovery is seemingly trying to streamline that into a single platform across all countries. And for one country, that's going faster than another country. So it's taking a while, depending on regional bases, to do that transition. And it looks like it's about to hit the UK because, well, Discovery Plus is about to perish and is transforming into TNT Sport, which is the new platform that Warner Bros. Discovery is really pushing forward as their sports platform, plus other streaming abilities, not just sports, but also other shit next to that. Now, the consequences for that is we had, I think, how expensive was GCN Plus? £20 for a year?
GCN Plus was free. That was
that was a robbery.
I mean, GCN Plus, I was like, you guys got to charge 4 times more. I mean, Keelan Kelly did a guest post on Benson about it wouldn't have mattered what they charged, and it's kind of true. Like, Warner Brothers from a top down wants bundling, and so it wouldn't matter if it was profitable, doing well, they would have just killed it to bundle. And to be honest, GCN Plus, I gotta say, the existence of it, whilst I very much liked it, very happy to advertise it, everyone listening in the Anglophone countries probably used it, the actual existence of it never made sense to me. I was like, why is Discovery paying to create OTT streaming service when they have Eurosport Player? I know there's Geo stuff, but yeah, never made sense.
But I did enjoy it existing, especially at that price.
Yeah, it was the best.
£20 for a year, roughly, as a price I have in my head, to Discovery Plus for me in the UK being £7 per month, which 7 times 12, that is 70 plus 14 is £84 per month.
That's fair. Per year,
that's a fair price. I'd even be willing to pay double. I'm okay with paying £15 per month to watch every race that I want on Discovery Plus. But they're now making the change to the streamlined TNT Sports, which is £31 per month. And you're basically not just paying for cycling, you're paying for all the other sports that you're going to have bundled into one platform, which I don't care about the other sports. I'm sorry, I don't watch anything else. I just want to watch cycling. So having to pay £31, like, yeah, I can afford it. Yeah, I'm probably going to pay it. But for the average cycling consumer, that's a lot of money throughout the year. 31 times 12, that is 300 plus 12. No, that's help. The 31 times 12. Fuck.
372.
What? Sorry.
372. 400 euros.
400 euros.
US.
372 pounds. That is a lot of money to spend.
A lot of money. That's fucking unbelievable.
That is a ridiculous price.
And it's a sports subscription, right? Because originally I thought, okay, if this is like original, because we're going full circle, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had cable. Everyone had cable, in which you had every channel. You had access to everything behind a paywall on your box. You had Sky Sports, part of that. You had Sky. And then we had the disaggregation of it, and we had debundling, and then OTT streaming services. So then you've got 12 different subscriptions to this and that, which, I guess Benji has. He wants to watch his TV show still. And now they're trying to rebundle. So Discovery's trying to rebundle stuff together. So I was thinking, oh, mate, okay, £372, but do you get every channel? It's a sports package.
Yep.
Still, right?
Yep.
700 Aussie dollars a year for a sports package. Who can afford that?
That is indeed ridiculous, in my opinion. But it's not just in the UK. We see this change happening all over Europe. If it's not happening in your country, it's probably going to happen soon. Outside of Europe as well. In America, we have, I hear tons of I'm saying we have. I'm not American. I've never actually been there. Tons of people are complaining in DMs or comments online that they're also affected by all these situations happening where they have to get 3 subscriptions at the same time to follow every single one of the things. That's also expensive, to the point that, hot take, like, I think Warner Bros. Discovery is bringing more people to piracy than they are bringing to the actual sport of cycling, is my opinion, with a change like that, a price increase like that. And I wouldn't be surprised to see an increase in VPN activities over the next year in the cycling community.
Yeah, because I think they don't even have, it's like they don't have the full complement of everything either. So yeah, you don't even have every cricket game or football game either, because they're also selling. I mean, I think eventually sports organizers are going to get their comeuppance because they've been taking the piss. They take the piss. Like, they sell their rights disaggregated across various geographies. They even split out various matches. So consumers, if they want to watch every Premier League game or every Champions League game, they have to get different subscriptions. It's like people just won't buy it in the end, and especially in a cost of living crisis. They'll be like, fuck it. And then they'll go to piracy. You're just forcing them to piracy. If you do not give people an affordable, accessible way to watch sports, the answer is they will not just comply and spend all their money. They will either pirate it or they will cease being fans.
But to me, this is also, well, first of all, we also got to take a look at, this is not only the fault, in my opinion, of the broadcasters, as in the broadcasters upping the price of the platform. Yes, I don't like it, first of all. But to me, this is also the fault of race organizers that can afford to look at that have options. For example, a Flanders Classic, say an ASO, an RCS, whatever, those kind of race organizers, if they go out of their way to make deals with companies like Warner Bros. Discovery that are exclusive, which in the deal, it doesn't prevent these platforms from overcharging to customers, then isn't it just cutting their own legs then as a race organizer? Because if less people watch their sport, then less people are going to be invested in their race. Then they've got less people watching their race. For example, TDF, the Tour de France, is not going to be on free-to-air TV in the UK anymore from 2026. It's not on ITV anymore, which is like the UK Sportza. So that's also a pretty major change, because that's how free-to-air cycling is how a lot of people get into the sport in the first place.
That's also the contract. That is the implied contract of how cycling is set up. There is no revenue sharing. You, team owner, get money from sponsor because we, race organizer, will put on race watched by many people. the biggest being the Tour de France. So now if you're a British company, why would you give the Ineos Grenadiers any money?
You wouldn't?
Why would you? They're not going to be, your logo or brand won't be viewable by a broad number of people during July anymore. Or it would be a much smaller number of people. So
it's true.
The race organizers are breaking the implied contract with the teams.
Exactly. And like when it comes to small race organizers, I can't blame small organizers to try and find a way to monetize their races. But we're talking about the big ones out there. We're talking about ASO, Flanders Classics, and so forth. They are major stakeholders in the sport, and they are partially responsible for how the sport succeeds in the next couple of years and in the next decade, etc. So I look partial. It's just as much their fault than it is the broadcasters upping their prices, in my opinion.
I mean, yeah, like Warner Discovery, everyone knows they're going to bundle. It's expensive. I mean, I already have HBO Max, and then I get the cycling add-on. It's like, I think it's much less money, but it's because I already had HBO Max. It was like a $5 add-on. I was like, okay, sweet. Like that to me, that is so. It's kind of unfair that depending on where you are, it can be pretty affordable or completely unaffordable. And so, I do think something needs to change. I mean, I could talk about race rights for so long. Like, honestly, it's unbelievable. Like, I'll contact a small race organizer, and because they'll have like unwittingly or not really knowing, they'll have like sold their digital rights exclusive, but not actually received any money for it. And then like I have to contact Eurosport to like try and sub-license to do a 5-minute YouTube video promoting the race on Lanterne Rouge YouTube channel. And obviously Eurosport, they're not going to do that. Or they charge quote something obscene.
Well, they consider you a competitor.
Well, no, they quoted something once, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to pay that amount of money when you just allow the race to be pirated in the first place. I'm trying to do this legitimately, but good luck to you. So it's a bit of a mess. It's a bit of a shame, particularly if we're going to talk about, we've got to have Worlds in Rwanda to grow the sport. It's like, well, let's do the basics first. Let's make races viewable to people in America or Germany, Australia, Canada, UK, where there already is latent interest in the sport, but that will go away. Australia's good, SBS, but also to play devil's advocate, Benji, ASO also have to make money. They're a business. And so what if they get 6 times, when they put the rights out to tender, they got a 6 times, 2 times, 3 times bigger bid from TNT than ITV. What are they supposed to do?
In the long term, it's going to bite them in the ass, is my opinion.
Okay, but what if they just had it's all on free to air? They've lost money giving it to free to air. Sky, Ineos, British winners. It's reached its peak. Now time to cash in.
But ASO is not a low income company either, eh?
Oh, it is. I think so. That's the biggest. I think ASO, they leave so much money on the table. They could make so much more money.
Yeah, but they already make quite a bit of money, in my personal. I recall looking up the figures a couple of weeks ago, and it was way more than I expected it to be. And for me, it's like either you go for the short term, 3 times the amount of money, and you give it to Eurosport for exclusively whatever to do what they want, or you think about the long term of the sport. And sorry, but if people can't see it on free to air, then there's going to be less people interested in 5 to 10 years in the sport, and then you're going to make more money now, but less money in the future. And I'd rather see the second alternative then, where they think about the future, because it's also their future income that they're impacting by choosing the short term.
Yeah, and that's probably, I think it's, I don't know how many years it is, but yeah, I think in an ideal world, you keep the Tour de France on free to air to get the new people in.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to have the Netflix series beforehand, then you want them to be able to watch it. And then, okay, put everything else behind a paywall if you want to continue being continue. But I don't know. It's
Luke brought it in chat. In 2022, the revenue of ASO was 550 million. I don't know what profit that includes, though.
It's not that much.
But I think that's quite a lot of money.
Tour de France is a huge sports event. When you compare it to like, I'm pretty sure like the Eredivisie, the Dutch football league's domestic rights was a 750 million contract for over 5 years or something. Like,
yeah, but how much is
that's not just the tour? That's Dakar. That's their whole portfolio of what they do the Paris Marathon.
So how much is an ASO licensing of the Tour de France Eurosport roughly in financial amount, if we had to guess?
No idea, but
because it sounds like it's not that much then.
If ASO could sell their rights behind a paywall for the tour everywhere, they would be making so much more money. But they can't in France.
But the sport would be the worst for it.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they can't. They can't because in France it wouldn't work, because then you don't get the free road closures, free police, etc. But I'm just saying that they also, I mean, Inner Ring did an article on this a few years ago saying about revenue sharing, and the problem is not that there's not revenue sharing, which is also a problem because that Eredivisie contract I just mentioned, that had to be approved by the clubs to that contract with the broadcaster. They had to approve it.
Imagine it happening in cycling.
Exactly. And
I've got another counterpoint for you very quickly. ASO also has sponsors that want to be on TV.
Exactly. Then you lose the money from Leclerc, from the jersey sponsors, etc. From the towns aren't going to pay. So,
yeah,
of course, but still, it's a strange sport, of course, which people keep trying to. Is it ever going to change the model? I don't know. But certainly not looking. Teo Gegenhardt did a nice post on this on Instagram. But I feel for you, people in the UK. I feel for you. It's a shame because it's going from good to bad. Okay, on better news. Valenciana starts tomorrow. We have no racing today. The racing kicks off tomorrow in Valencia and Bessèges. They've all been training in Valencia over the off-season, and we have a 5-day stage race, also with a very good start list. Joao Almeida, Jai Hindley, so some real hitters. Who else we got? Vlasov, who won this race before or won a stage before. O'Connor, Butrago, Lenny Martinez. Oh, stacked GC field. Seb Berwick, big GC field.
Had to mention Seb in that
Let
list,
him
you
cook.
know? But like, the team of UAE is obviously very strong here. Having McNulty, Almeida, Sivakov, etc. But before we jump into the riders, do we talk about the profiles first, or what do we do? Because the way their favoritism happens depends on especially the first parkour itself, mate. The first route.
True.
First stage.
Oh, dude, UAE going to win this by. They're going to maybe 1, 2, 3 GC. It's ridiculous. First stage, 34 Ks long team time trial. Healy, UAE should win this by a minute. They got McNuggets, Almeida, Baroncini, Grossschartner, Johansson, Oliveira, Sivakov. So it's a 40-minute TT. They got these 70-kilo threshold guys. Yeah, they're going to obliterate it.
Yes. A 34-kilometer team time trial.
That's so long.
Wait a second. In a 5-day stage race, that is the most random thing I've seen in a very long time. Especially a 5-day stage race where it's not a WorldTour race. So you've got a combination of WorldTour teams and quite a few pro teams involved, including continental teams involved. It's such a mixed field in terms of level and performance. Mate, the last team is going to end on 10 minutes.
Dude, is Petrolite going to OTL?
I hope
it's a
not.
bunch of 50-kilo South Americans and some Italian children.
On what? On which bikes do they have, Petrolite?
I don't know. I feel sorry for
I don't know either,
them.
actually. Petrolite 2025. Oh, what bikes? I'm going to look it up. You can yap forward for a second.
But yeah, UAE, I mean, McNuggets won last year. Now it's a TTT. It's looking good for them. The other stages, stage 2 is a steep uphill finish, 4Ks, 9.5%. Stage 3 is a punchy uphill finish where maybe the breakaway can go. Stage 4 is again an uphill finish, hilly stage where I don't see Johnny Milan making. It's going to be tough for him on 3 and 4. he'll try. Stage 5 is the locked on sprint 100Ks flat.
They ride on Scots. They'll be fine.
Okay. Well, they won't be fine, Benchy. They're going to get fucking destroyed, but they'll...
Fair point.
So yeah, tough race for the old sprinters where we do have a few of them here. It's a better race for someone like maybe Jelte Cranston, who makes his debut for Jayco, or Frederick Wandal. But yeah, Trek don't bring a GC rider. They bring a full train for Johnny Milan. I think he should have gone to Oman, honestly. Like, this is not the... I mean, he did win the final stage last year, but there was a breakaway. Great stage for Blackmore, the uphill finishes, or even Lenny. But yeah, this is a brutal race, actually. Brutal 5-day race.
I don't like the parkour in the way the race is organized. As in, the last 2 stages are the least influential in GC. After 3 days, we'll know who has won GC. Most likely, in my opinion, after 2 days, we'll know who won GC.
Yeah, I think...
I don't want that in a 5-day stage race.
Almeida will win GC, and that's that. So that's that race.
Yes.
And Sivakov and McNuggets should be in the top 5 as well. Tour of Oman, another Dot Pro race. It also begins with Muscat Classic, so you get extra points. That's not a Dot Pro, that's a Dot 1, which was won by Finn Fisher-Black in her solo last year. Tour of Oman, they have a new sprint stage finishing in the Bima sinkhole, which you're all familiar with, on the eastern coast of Oman. So could have some crosswind action. That's a sprint. Stage 2 is the Yiti Hills, which is won by Ulysses before, sort of for punchers. It doesn't look that hard, but it's actually...
AliExpress Hatterdam.
No, it's not like Hatterdam.
In terms of legendariness, it's AliExpress Hatterdam.
Yiti Hills, yes, I agree with that. It's for me exciting, but not for other people. Eastern Mountain returns, which I think is called something else. Arabic 181K stage 3, first GC stage. It's 5K, 7.5%. Fake news climb, last 1,500 meters, absolutely rampas. Jorgensen won his first race here, I think, on that stage, which set him up for GC. Yep. Stage 4 is a sprint, but it's a little bit uphill that Ewan won. It was stage 1 last year in the Oman Convention Center, just outside where they stay. Then stage 5 is the Jabal Al Akhdar.
Yes. The Green Mountain.
I got cut off with my Green Mountain. It's one of my favorite climbs. This is where Chris Froome dropped Bradley Wiggins for good in 2013. It's where Rui Costa's done well. It's where Adam Yates destroyed everybody last year. 7Ks, 10%. Huge rampas.
How do you remember?
Dude, Green Mountain. Real ball knows no Green Mountain.
Wait, because like back in the day, we had Tour of Qatar.
Yes.
We
not
had
this country.
Dubai Tour.
Yes.
Which is also not this country. We have Tour of Oman, which didn't Nibali win this race multiple times?
Oh, I think. Nah, Lutsenko.
Mate, 2016. Get out of here. Vincenzo Nibali. Get wrecked.
Okay, he won it once.
Well, I rewatched it multiple times, so technically he won it multiple times in my head, okay?
Yeah, he won on... How do you not remember Green Mountain? He dropped Bardet, full sang Dumoulin Costa.
I just told you that he did.
Yeah. Dude, it's goated Whopper Kilo test. It also can be crosswinds beforehand.
Yeah, true. How did Cancellara win this in 2010? Was it flat?
Nah, they must have got rid of Green Mountain.
Has to, right?
They hadn't paved it yet. They only did
Muscat
Kurayat.
ITT? Yeah, 19K ITT, and there won by Boston Hagen ahead of Cancellara back in the day, in the good Hagen days.
Dude, there should be
Jabal Akhdar.
There should be a 3-week Middle East Grand Tour in February. You go Saudi.
No, thank you.
Saudi, UAE. No, sorry, Saudi, Bahrain, Qatar, then down to Oman, and then Yemen, but not too close to the what's it, the Straits of Hormuz? Yeah, do a 3-week Middle East. It'd be just crosswinds, flat TTs, brutal uphill finishes.
I I don't necessarily want to see that. And I think from a cycling standpoint, I don't want to see that because of the fact that every single fucking stage is a Unipuerto stage.
No, you do reps. Yeah, but actually, a lot of the descents are too like they neutralize the one in Saudi because they're too dangerous to go down because the road surface is like really, really bad. There's loads of wind, and then it's a straight highway, and they go down them at 120 k's an hour because you don't have to brake. So yeah, it's hard to not do Unipuerto. Luke
is saying that Jebel Hafid is a one-way giant as well, but what Luke doesn't see is that there's potential investment to build another road downstairs.
They did that in Saudi, and then they only built it halfway, and they did one rep, and the riders were like, holy fuck, and everyone punctured, and they had to neutralize it and take a lap out. So, yeah. The start list for UAE, they bring a ridiculous team for GC. Micah, Vine, Soler, Jates. That's crazy. Like, on the uphill finishes, they're gonna cook. And they don't have a sprinter, though. They do have Vermeersch, so I'll see how Vermeersch goes in, say, Muscat Classic. Ulysses for Astana with Pools. Really good race for Pools, actually, with these steep Angleroo-style finishes. Capio won Muscat before. Oh, no, Behrmans did, sorry. Capio's won a stage here, so Arkea have form here. Soudal Quickstep, versatile sprinter Hayter. Good stages for him, as well as Valentin Paris-Pantra, the steep uphills. David Godou. No Bessèges for him. He comes with a strong team. Valentin Madouas, Mollard. That's very good for Muscat Classic and some of these other like punchy finishes. So Godou, really good race for him as well. So on the Volta on the Rampas, he's good because he's not aero, but he's light. And for Visma, they have Behrens, Nordhagen, Koy, Otterbrooks, Matteo, who's from the Devo team. So they got two of the young GC riders, and then the sprint trainer Maclay, Behrens, and Matteo for Koy.
I think there should be a 3-week Grand Tour in Belgium. I've been thinking about it while you were ranting about the start list. And the cobble stages,
mate, Renewey can barely do Renewey properly. You change the name every year.
Delete the Renewey Tour. Delete Dwars of London. Delete half the one-way race that we have in Belgium. Replace it by a 3-week Grand Tour in Belgium with cobble stages every weekend.
Who would win that?
One of the stages, like 17 reps of the Outer Quartermont.
I would not watch that.
Really?
Fuck no.
It's basically a longer version of the Koppenberg Cross.
Yeah. The sprint field is really, really weak. It's Nizzolo, Bittner, Hayter, and Koy. Maybe the stages are hard enough so that Hayter can win on Yiddy Hills. That's a really good finish for him. But the pure sprints, if Koy doesn't win one, then I'd say it'd be pretty disappointing for him. So I don't know who Jaco is sending. Who do you think wins GC? Jates?
You kind of want him to if you have that team of UAE team members.
This looks like a Jates cleanup job to me.
I think so too. Looking through the start lists, Adam Yates is the man to beat. I'm very curious to see what Behrens does on the Yiddy Hills finish, because maybe that's the one where he gets a little bit of an opportunity, depending on whether Koy feels very vibrant to get over some hills.
No, Koy not making that. The sprinters
I don't think so either.
It doesn't look that hard, but when you watch it, the sprinters never make it even close.
But Behrens, we don't consider like a flat sprinter, right? The guy's versatile, right?
No. He won Zurich Worlds.
Exactly. So I'm leaning towards, I want to see what that man does there. Obviously, half the start list is empty, so I'm looking at a very limited list, but
Godou wins on Eastern Mountain, but Jates drops him on Jebel Al Akhdar.
Adam Yates wins on Eastern Mountain, in my opinion.
You think?
It's good for Godou.
I think it's good for Godou.
Nah.
He's been posting on Instagram saying he's ready. I don't know.
Mate, no.
You say Yates? Okay, fair enough.
Not having
does look good for Yates. The other race on is Étoile de Bessèges. This is a .1 race with a World Tour start list. Crazy start list. It really is. First stage is the Bellegarde 1K 9% finish that won by Axel Laurence, I think, last year, ahead of Pedersen. Pedersen and Dali normally go against each other here. Stage 2 is it's a sprint stage. Stage 3 is a versatile sprint stage, but for someone like Pedersen, really, they won't even feel the bumps. Stage 4 is the Mont Bouquet finish, 4.6 stage 9%. It's I think Schelmoser and Paulus were against, and Vauquelin were against each other a few years ago. It's got a really steep section of 10% for 3Ks, and then there's the famous ITT, which is flat for the first 8Ks. Then they go up the twisty 1800 meter 7% climb.
L'Hermitage. But to be honest, I'm very much looking forward to the first stage. I always do when it comes to Bessèges. Bellegarde is that 1K steep finish where we'll see the likes of Mess Pedersen, we'll see the likes of Arnaud Dali, we'll see the likes of, I'm forgetting the third guy that is definitely going to compete.
Manier.
Was it Manier? Like those three names when it comes to the first finish. Laurence as well. Well, for the first stage, I do less Vauquelin.
Court. There's actually a crazy start list for that stage.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the Van Gils one as much as I see Pedersen, Dali, and so forth. Because this is like, my story is this is gonna be a good stage. Okay,
dude. There's a guy on Little Trek called Patrick Boyer.
Yes,
he stole my name.
Patrick
Who are you?
Boyer. He's nowhere near the same.
Yeah, what's he doing?
Pritkier. I think he got a top 2 somewhere together with a
top 2. Okay.
No, I can't even see it.
Who's he friends with?
Because Martin Pedersen, we know why he's in the team, right?
Yeah.
But there's that Danish continental team that Daniel Stampe is part of, or was part of, Airtox Karl Rasch. And if I'm trying to quickly look this up. The boss guy of that, Klaus Pedersen, isn't he Mess Pedersen's dad?
Don't know.
So Mess Pedersen's Nepo baby, and what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, to be honest, like in cycling, most of the Nepo babies are actually good because they've been put on the bikes. And Matthew Van Der Poel's a Nepo baby, but he's actually pretty good. So it's, yeah. But yeah, really good start list for the punchers. No real sprinters here except Bennett and Dali. We have Delettre on Total. Keen to see how he goes. Red Bull apparently are bringing a ridiculous team with Lascano, Tratnik, and Van Gils, 3 of their new signings. Really keen to see how Van Gils goes on Mont Bouquet, or even how Lascano survives on Mont Bouquet, because if he survives, and then maybe on the new Bora TT setup he'll be on for that TT, Lascano might be winning that final time trial. Ganna's here, though. Tarling. It's tough. Like, are they doing UAE? They're not doing UAE. This is the problem, Benji.
Yeah.
Like, neither of them are doing UAE, which is a flat ITT, which one of them would win. They're not guaranteed to win this TT uphill.
Yep. I agree, and it's like, we've spoken about this a couple times now, eh?
And it's a .1.
Over the last off-season, and they're sending Ganna and Tarling to Bessèges instead of UAE Tour, which that is crazy to me. Especially because Ganna's always been good at UAE Tour, not even just in the time trial. You need to at least send one of the two to UAE Tour.
Because even if they do win, it's a .1. It's like, well, Ganna beat Pedersen by 7 seconds in 2022 when he did this finish, but Lascano... he might win this on this sort of finish. Maybe Tarling's even better. So I don't really... Yeah, maybe it's just not on Tarling's schedule yet. I don't know. There is time, I think. I think there is time to do Bessèges and then go to UAE.
One of them has to.
Yeah.
And so I would say Ganna over Tarling, personally.
Yeah.
Considering what Ganna's done in the past at that race.
Yep. Okay, and so who do you think's winning GC, Benji?
Van Gils' time trial, not completely sold on, so not seeing that necessarily. Going through the teams in my head.
Kevin Vauquelin.
I think he's definitely one of the favorites.
He won the TT last year.
Yeah. How close did he get in GC? Or did he?
2 seconds behind Pedersen, and there was no Mont Bouquet last year.
Exactly. So, yeah.
And stage 1 got cancelled due to protests.
Well, you said Vauquelin, so I can't pick Vauquelin either. But I'm actually leaning towards Vauquelin, to be honest.
Yeah. I think he looked very good in Marseillaise, and here we actually have some uphill finishes. He's looking nasty. Okay, that's Bessèges. I think Johnny Milan should have done Bessèges, not Valencia, personally.
Yep.
I think the sprints in Valencia, Pedersen, those stage 2 and 3, Pedersen could have made. 3 and 4 in Valencia, Pedersen could have made them.
I agree with you, but I want to see Mats Pedersen on Bellegarde.
Is legally contracted to do as many .1 French Mickey Mouse February races as possible and skip opening weekend.
I agree. I think it's just a must, so I have to legally disagree with what you have to say. What do you expect of Carapaz at this race?
Oh, Hagwell's here. Yeah, he might win Mont Bouquet, but the TT, he will lose too much.
I don't see him winning Bouquet either. I just don't expect him to be at form yet in February.
Yeah, he's in nap time. UAE Tour Women begins this week. Stage 1 is the Dubai Harbour Sprint. Stage 2 is the somewhat famous now desert stage where they have hectic crosswinds out of the neutral zone. This is the stage where Van der Poel went clear in 2021 with Yates and Poggi. It's the stage where Plapp solo bridged when Remco and Merlier launched it in the crosswinds in 23. There was also a 5-minute gap in the echelons in the women's race when they did this in 23, and then it all came back together. So that stage is huge. The Al Mirfa stage in crosswinds. Then they do Jebel Hafit, the only uphill stage. 11K is 6.7%. Can also be crosswinds before that, actually. And then they do the Abu Dhabi breakwater sprint. So I would say 2.5 sprints, 1 definite crosswind stage, and then Hafit finish.
Now, when it comes to the start list, we have the sprinters here, which is Lorena Wiebes, Charlotte Kool. This is not confirmed, by the way. I'm looking at an unconfirmed start list, but I'm guessing those two will be there. I'm hoping, because those are the 2 top sprinters in women's cycling. Balsam are also on a temporary start list at the moment. Chiara Consoni and so forth. I'd like to see as many top sprinters as possible at this time. But when it comes to GC, I'm a bit uncertain about the schedule of everyone, because I'd love to see Kopecky do this race again after last year, personally. When it comes to Jesus, temporarily Guazzini and Labour on the start list. I don't expect Volding to do UAE Tour Women. So
this is the race where Labour gets to go for her own result.
Yeah, and where Longo Borghini and Persico at UAE and temporarily Ferrand Prévot is also on the start list. Apparently, we'll see if that is actually happening.
Yep.
And there, I want to see whether she's climbing relatively okay, because if she wants to compete for a Tour de France fund, then we need to see her climb relatively well at some point in the next couple of months. So not much to say about this race yet. I just think my prediction is Mavi Garcia is at the front on Jebel Hafid for 3 kilometers straight, and obviously doesn't win.
Movistar no confirms or any provisionals yet. So yeah, it's a really pretty threadbare start list, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But
it's also a bit early, for us. No?
It starts in 2 days, Benji. It starts on the 6th.
You weren't kidding when you said all the races follow each other up very quickly now.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. No, it's like we're on now. February's packed. But you're right.
I was going to take a nap for a week now.
I would say the strongest lead out is going to be Picnic Post NL, not SD Works, without Kopecky. Because if you got Yastrab, Giorgi Barbieri, Franziska Koch for Cole, that's a way stronger lead out than what SD Works have with just who's the Italian? Guarischi. So I think Picnic Post NL have the best lead out, and indeed Cole has won sprints here before with Vibes present. But yeah, it's like start list, man. Can we get some earlier start lists? Starts in a day and a half.
True. Especially if it starts in 2 days.
They're on the plane.
Well, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They might already be there.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. Somebody.
Anyway.
Okay. Is there anything else?
what other races exist in the world? Are we not talking about the Grand Prix Aspendos, my friend? Let's look at the start list. Grand Prix Aspendos is starting with the Kazakhstan national team with Lev Poroshenko. I have no clue who these
Luke
people
has
are.
news. Luke has news. Maybe Luke says the rebel group M23 has declared a ceasefire in the east of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So Worlds is a go.
Enter the Rwanda, then.
Yep, enter Rwanda. Which I think Quickstep and Lotto normally do.
Good to see a stop at the conflict, regardless of the races, in my opinion.
So, anyway, thanks, Luke, for the update. But do not continue to follow us.
On the ground, Luke Grefte.
Yeah, do not continue to follow us for geopolitical news. Okay, that's all from us. We'll be back with a weekly show next week, wrapping up all these races we just previewed. Loads of racing starting, all the big most of the second-tier stars, I would say, and sprinters get going this week. But we still are yet to see Remco, Poggi, Jonas, and Roglic. We will see them, I would say, at the end of February in the Algarve UAE races. But yeah, really looking forward to this week of racing actually without them, because sometimes it's a bit more exciting.
Ooh. Bellegarde, looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it. Can't wait for it tomorrow. Okay, hope you enjoyed the LRCP Weekly, and we'll see you in the next one. Ciao.